Good evening and a warm welcome to Weekend Dialogue. Tonight in our studios we have with us Mr. Chandula Abeywickrema, who is the consultant for strategy and marketing at National Savings Bank. Good evening and a warm welcome to you.
Good evening to you.
So you retired from Hatton National Bank in 2013 and now you're here. Tell us about your progress since then.
Yes, I was at Hatton National Bank for 25 years nearly, and I was overall head of retail and development banking when I retired as a deputy general manager for nearly 15 years, deputy general manager. And I was involved in initiating number of innovations there. And in fact, just before I retired, the bank gained for 6 consecutive years the best retail bank for 6 consecutive years under my leadership. And since retiring from HNB in 2013, I had an assignment at Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, a specialized arm, the CC Solution as their managing director, CEO. And then while I was completing nearly close to 1.5 years, I was approached by a headhunting entity for this particular assignment for NSB.
Right.
And NSB, I think, want to really move ahead, change its dynamics into a different sphere, being a public sector bank, and they were looking for a person who had that insight on the retail banking side. And through a headhunting agency, they approached me, and I thought, okay, here is something which opportunity where I can contribute to a public sector entity to bring certain banking dynamism into and my thinking into its right to cover that challenge.
What is really your role as the strategy and marketing consultant? I mean, what are you looking forward for, and what changes would you bring to this public sector banking giant?
Yeah, I think if you look at, I've basically had 25 years, almost 30 years of private sector banking and finance industry, starting at LOLC and then HNB. And over a period of so many years, the banking industry, financial industry has moved and brought new innovations, new thinking, new challenges, more positive experience to the customers. And I think in the light of that, I think NSB being one of the legendary bank and public sector leading institution, a household name, and basically they need to also probably bring that efficiency, innovation, the creativity and value creation to all their touch points and their customers. And it is in that regard that probably they felt that a person of my caliber would bring that value. And the challenge here is a brand, nationally accepted, nationally earned reputation, and that this brand is something which probably need to give a experience that can really trigger significant value to not only to a particular group of customers, but to a large segment of the society, covering the children to the senior citizens to to corporates and all kinds of sectors, and thereby how we could really bring that economic enrichment and empowerment to a wider segment of the society. So in that regard, you need to think of new innovations, new thinking, new channels, and new way of communication. So it is in that regard that not only banks have to reposition strategically, but also kind of bring certain delivery mechanism that can strategically people can experience. You know, you are competing in a more efficient, dynamic society.
Right. And NSB as a public sector entity, as a bank, has seen a few challenges in the past, and there has been a backward and lethargic situation that we witnessed. How do you look at overcoming these challenges, and what new plans do you think the bank itself has to take, because this is the pioneering bank in Sri Lanka?
I think the bank, being a national bank, there is significant commitment to national development and development of its people.
Right.
Particularly, NSB is looking at the wider segment of the society, rural society, the middle class, the lower middle class, all the other rural areas of the country, and bringing the greater inclusion. That's what NSB is for. If they want to bring greater inclusion, and also over the years, the NSB team also have recognized the fact that they need to really match their talents, their skills to the level of the private sector and the expectation of the customers. Otherwise, they will be they will be left behind.
Right.
So it is in that context that they realize that there is no way that they can relax. They cannot relax, and they cannot bring that kind of slow approach. But they need to be in a dynamic environment. They need to also be dynamic, and that's where you need to bring that greater inclusion to touch every segment of the society. So I think that's where the conviction has now come from the leadership of the bank, including from the chairman to the general manager, CEO, and the rest of the entire fragment or fabric of the banking framework of NSB realizes that the challenge has to be met, and to meet that challenge, that they need to energize themselves.
Well, when you look at the private sector banking industry in Sri Lanka, they seem to be moving fast with new innovations, developments, catering to their customers. But of course, from the public sector banks, we do not see that sort of an aggressive move towards innovation. How do you think this needs to?
I think the commitment is there. Commitment to innovation is there because they are competing in the same market, among the same segment, same customers. They are meeting, so they have felt the private sector is coming up with new approaches, new innovations, new challenges, new creativity. So the public sector banking institutions also have realized that they have no option. They cannot look back on their credentials or their track record, but they need to move ahead. They need to adopt things fast and much faster. And towards that, they need to bring that collaborative partnerships, and they need to really invest in the innovation, in creativity, in technology, in human resource development. I think that commitment has come.
So that commitment, does that mean NSB will materialize this commitment?
Yeah, I think the fact that they have resourced me into their system is a testimony that they believe in it.
You have been a pioneer in small and medium sector enterprise development and a promotion of these enterprises. How do you look at this segment, and specifically through NSB's, moving into, expanding into the SMEs? And I think NSB has been doing this for some time. But what are you really looking at?
Yes, I have been almost 3 decades in my banking sector career. I have been involved very much in the retail and development side of banking, which include the micro and small and medium sector development and entrepreneur development. I think essentially in Sri Lanka, the opportunities there for the country to develop on this area, to develop the micro, small and medium, and then commercial enterprises, because that would be the fabric of development, economic development in this country. And in my experience in the private sector, there have been number of plans that was there from the banking sector to create the platform for this. When I say platform, first of all, you find different shapes and sizes of entrepreneurs, from micro to small and medium. Now, you need to really create I call three AAA, for all this. First of all, you need to really, being a bank and a financial institution, you need to create the financial services, first of all, available to them. I mean, it could be through the branch network of branches, where horizontally you expand into the locations where the SMEs, micro and small entrepreneurs are. You make yourself available. Otherwise, it was a Western province-centric kind of expansion. But in order to go to other provinces, you need to geographically make your services available. So no point in making services available geographically, but if you don't have the accessibility to the entrepreneurs to come into the banking system and enjoy the financial services. How do you make accessibility to these micro and small and medium entrepreneurs? To make financial service affordable. That's what I call available, accessible and affordable. So AAA. So making financial services affordable is we need to have those financial products, whether it's micro loans, whether it's small and medium loans, whether it's kind of entrepreneurship loans, whether it's savings, whether whatever the financial services have to be made affordable. Otherwise, there is no accessibility. So that has been a challenge for the banking sector for last so many years, because what happens is, here is a sector which is sometimes a thread between the formal and informal.
Right.
And here is a sector which we sometimes, unlike a blue chip company, doesn't have audited financial statements, records of various things, but they are entrepreneurs. They have ideas, they have businesses running, but they probably will not have the structure that meets the requirement like a corporate entity where the auditor statements are, financial statements, project report, but whereas businesses are there, they're there. So therefore, to match that requirement, you need to make your financial services, package it, tailor make it, so that it brings the affordability, not only on the price structure affordability, not on the size and the price, but also the way it is being evaluated by the banks. You know, you need to have the industry experts to evaluate, who can understand a micro and a small entrepreneur and his business.
Right.
You can't do it from a kind of a air-conditioned office looking at a financial statement. You need to go to the grassroots level, understand how he runs the operations. To do that, you need to have a respect to industry experts who could assess at the grassroots level, at the ground level. So it could be agriculture project, it could be a light engineering project. So there has to be an industry expert recruited by the financial institutions to assess that. And that's where the affordability come to create accessibility to this level of entrepreneurs.
Right. And now when you talk about development across the AAA basis, do you think the infrastructure and the environment is conducive for future growth in Sri Lanka?
I think the market is ready. Market is ready because from the demand side, there is a huge demand from the micro, small and medium level of entrepreneurs and businesses.
Right.
Demand is there. Now the delivery, supply side, delivery of that services. Now it doesn't mean just because you go and open a branch in a remote area that financial services are affordable to people or accessible. Unless you make the financial services affordable, and by not only by price and the size of the product and services, by the way it is delivered. And that is why sometimes the banks and the financial institutions have to have at the grassroots level barefoot bankers who could understand the respective micro, small business entrepreneurs, businesses.
Right.
And then thereby kind of tailor-made the solutions, and that solution they need to in turn sell it back to their superiors and say, okay, I believe in this business. I believe in this business, this entrepreneur, he has the capacity, he has the business, his business model works, and his conviction has to be affirmed to his superiors, and in turn, that faster process of approvals for the delivery of financials need to take place.
Right. If we move on to talk a little about youth participation in economic activity and development of the national economy, do you think there's enough space in Sri Lanka promoting youth participation and engagement?
I think this has been a significant challenge in Sri Lanka, particularly in the youth empowerment. And I think this is a country which we have faced significant youth-related issues. We have had nearly 2 southern youth uprising and 1 northern youth uprising, and all related to the economic inclusion of the youth in the mainstream. I think what is essentially is to bring that, first of all, we need to understand how the youth could be made employable and creating that employment opportunities, make employable and creating employment opportunities.
Right.
Now that employability and employment opportunities come from 2 aspects. One is the skills development of the youth, whether it's education or professional skills. When I say education and professional, it could be any profession. It could be not only accountant, it could be a carpenter or a mason or a plumber. It could be engineer, doctor. So it's all professionals. Then educational skills as well as professional skills has to be enhanced. So there has to be an institutional mechanism to do that. Now that mechanism comes from both public and private sector. Now private sector is the largest employer of the country, particularly the youth, if you look at. Public sector runs the administrative structure. Public sector has less and less on industry-based, commercial-based entities. But private sector runs the majority of the industry-based, commercial-based entities. Now, so therefore they are the largest employer or entity that create employability. Employability comes from not only from direct employment, indirect employment, but also through the entrepreneurship opportunities.
Right.
So what happens here is we need to really look at both the public sector institution mechanism and the private sector delivery mechanism work in hand in glove. When I say public sector institution mechanism, when you look at the educational institutions, skills development institutions, on professional institutions, where we institutions like NITA, institutions like vocational training institutions, as well as the private sector businesses. Now, for instance, for an example, private sector say, look, we need 10,000 professional masons. We need about 50,000 professional plumbers. We need 10,000 professional air conditioning mechanics.
Right.
But the public sector is not producing that. So there's a huge mismatch. Private sector is producing so many thousands of people who are doing O-levels and A-levels, but they are not professionally qualified, and none of them are going into this kind of professional areas. And that's the mismatch is there. So private sector demand for employability is not met with the public sector institutional mechanism that create that supply. So that's where the public sector and the private sector has to talk together and create that, like the same model like where in Germany you have, because I was invited by the German government in 2014 to understand how in Germany public-private sector partnership works and the dual education system works there. Like that, you need to really understand what the demand side,
right,
and then match with the supply side. So there are institutions, private public sector institution, which produces the needs of the private sector, should adequately prepare the younger generation with the professional skills, professional education, as well as the development them to the market requirements. So I think towards that there has to be public-private partnership.
Again, what kind of a role can the government play? I think I'm told that we are short of time, but if you can briefly mention to us about what sort of a role that the government and implementing agencies can do in order to rectify this situation.
I think the government public sector side, there has to be one single apex body which will begin to work with the private sector apex body. Public sector should really speak to the private sector apex body like chambers or the industry chambers and understand what the private sector need from the employability side or entrepreneurship opportunity side from the younger generation. Once they understand this is what private sector need, and then the private they get them that need is assessed properly,
right,
for the next 5 years or next 10 years from the private sector supply demand sides. And then that need should be matched by the institutional mechanism, for instance, with the vocational institutions, whether producing plumbers, whether it's producing carpenters or electricians or mechanics or doctors or engineers or nurses, they should match the needs of the demand side of the private sector, which is not matched. And to do that, I think there has to be one single apex body from the public sector. Now, there are 5 different ministries talking to 5 different private sector institutions will not make things happen. So the one single entity, apex body, should talk to one or two single private sector apex bodies and create the framework to deliver this.
Right, I think on that note, it's time we wrap up, but thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us here on Weekend Dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
We had with us Mr. Chandula Abeywickrema, who is the consultant for strategy and marketing at National Savings Bank. To stay with Biz Roundup, we'll be back with more after this break.